stacked fleet. It absolutely is. And we have 40 seconds now to that start. And you can see it is a little bit shorter, the start line, than with the Nacra course. And there is only space for one boat up on that start line. There will be probably a second line in that, because this racing is a little bit more condensed. But evenly split, hey, you've got Denmark number 9 right up close to the screen. They've got their work cut out for them. They've got 20 seconds now to the start to hold on to that position. But there you can see from the aerial, they've got a little bit more space than we first mentioned. A few boats going for that port hand tack start, and they do just wait and sit back on port tack, and they'll pull the trigger very shortly. These guys are off in 3, 2, 1, and you can see them rock their sails down to leeward, pump them flat down to windward, and these guys are at full stretch really quickly. They build their speed quick, these boats.
Certainly too. Good pit-in start there by the Danish combination, and I think that is, as I quickly look for Denmark 9, it's Jonas Wara and Jacob Jensen. Good start by Denmark at the pen end. Immediately at the other end of the line, the boats that started, and there's a big gaggle of them there, they've tacked. So this pattern of, I want the right. If I start at the committee boat end, I tack and I'm gone. And it's the German combination at the moment. Look of Heil and Plusel, second at the last Worlds.
And the Fantella brothers as well, yeah, right up there with them.
No surprise there. So this will settle down now. Let this first piece of the pre-start or the start settle down, and let's just see. I'm sure when we come to live pitches, we'd expect to see Burling and Took in the mix somewhere.
So they are sitting 2 boats up from the pin end. So they did have a dig at that left hand there. They are on your screen there. New Zealand number 1, reigning world champions. They only got it for a few months, that title, before they have to defend it again. And they have gone for that pin end. So we've got a nice little split on our hands now, with about 50% of the fleet gone for that early tack.
That group started out, there was a little bit of line bias. So what David Campbell-James has done, he said, well, I'm going to offset, the trend has been right. I'm going to offset that by giving port end, 5 or 8 degrees of bias. Now, a few of the boats, and this boat here, number 9, that's Wara, who's currently showing to be leading, and Burling and Tuka down there have said, we'll take that, we'll bank that. But the key will be, can they actually put it in the bank and get back with that right-hand group?
That tack is really tough. You've got to be sure that you're going to cross those boats, because a duck you can sell a lot of boat length having to put the bow down and duck. But it does look like they'll clear their Danish teammates. It will be the New Zealand team that will apply the most amount of pressure for Wara and Jensen to make that tack across.
Well, as it sits up there, so Wara and Jensen in the lead. Then you go back and you've got Lubeck and then Burling and Took to windward and on their hip. I wouldn't mind betting if Wara is ahead, and I think he is ahead of the 2 boats behind, the New Zealanders will tack early and take the lane back over to the other side. Burling and Took are being affected now by both. Yeah, bang, they're out of there.
Boom, there they go. We do have now the majority of the fleet on port tack, a wall of boats. You can see they're right on the distance, all heading out to that right-hand side. They know the trends. They've watched that last Nacra race, and there they are, all sending it out.
Yeah, but what's different this time was that line bias at the beginning, and the two Danish boats have said, yep, we'll take that, and Burling and Took also. Now, what will happen with the patterning, though, as they come back up towards the middle of the course, if we get this persistent shift to the right and pressure on the right, that the group on the right could really benefit on that.
Yeah, will it be enough?
So early on it has been left, and we'll just have to see what happens, whether the left is strong enough to hold off that big group of boats heading over out towards the right-hand ley line.
Needham and Turner, you can see their flag just popping up there on your screen, Australia number 40. They've done a nice little tidy job there. They've just got their bow clear of that right-hand pack. They would be one of the more standout boats that are heading out to this side. There's also the Brazil team, number 15. Those guys are the furthest out on that right-hand side. They're really having a stab.
Yeah, and I think the other boats have started up towards the committee boat end, and you've still got to believe, given what's been happening here today, you'd be a brave person to say, hey, they won't come back and be really strong against the group that started on the left. Here's the current world champions. They've won the worlds 5 times. They've got a gold medal from Rio, silver medal from London, and of course they've got a thing called the America's Cup also tucked under their belt. Very busy sailors, and the variety of boats they sail, they set the standard for modern yachting. So that's Peter Burling and Blair Tuke, and really they, in my mind, set the benchmark for not just this sort of yachting, maybe yachting in its entirety in terms of what these young sailors and the modern sailor can achieve in our sport.
Just checking in on the Germans, we said they had such a great boat end start. They really leapt out of the gun, but they've had a little bit of trouble with their speed. They've found themselves a little bit deeper in the pack, maybe squeezed off by another boat over on that side, and it has put them in a little bit of a compromising position. I can see right over in the corner that they've got a wall of dirty air. They're really going to have to work hard to consolidate. We keep talking about these consolidating positions, and for them to keep a score that's going to be in their favour. They've got to put the bow down. They've got to get their speed up. You can see on the shot here how condensed these boats are, and there's not much space. If you slow down, you have to bear away to get your speed back up, but sometimes you just do not have a choice, and you can see a great example of that. It is the French off the Americans. They're just having to fight for every inch of height there to stay off the hip of the Americans, and that battle is happening all across this race course.
So the boats now come back together. We'll get a good grip now on what side of the track we like. We're seeing the 2 Danish boats, Warra and Lubeck, Somerville and Simpson, Jack Simpson from New Zealand, Dylan Fletcher Scott and Bithell, Burling and Tuke are up in the mix as well.
But an interesting one here is that they've actually done a tack off, so they're heading out to the left for another dig there. Maybe they didn't have as clear air as they thought, so they'll be having another little step out onto the left-hand side to try to get a nice lane to take them into that top mark. They've got a lot of sailing to do on port.
Yeah, a lot of sailing and a lot of congestion for the boats that'll come back from the left. As we come here, we look at Germany 59, and that's Schmidt and Bomi.
It's tough living in the middle of the pack here. The guys in the middle of the fleet, that's who we're driving across on the drone here. These guys are really battling it out. It's really quite compact in the middle. There's a little bit more space on either end of the fleet. We're talking about New Zealand number 1, Burling and Tuke. They have tacked now back on a bit of a better rung, so they've got some clear air. We're going to see that those 2 fleets come together here. We're in the top third of this beat. We're going to see what's happening.
Going to be tight at the top, but it is the boats that started down towards the pin end of the line that have capitalised. That's Warra and Jensen, and his countryman Lubeck, then Burling, then Needham and Turner from Australia make up that top 4.
Yeah, Needham and Turner, they're quite both really young guys, and it's great to see them putting together a really good result. Out there today. They'll be really happy.
Well, I just think this whole 49er class is brilliant, where you've got the old guard, well, they're not that old, but and then you've got this whole bunch of people that are just lining themselves up to give this class such a rich, tapestry when we look at the future.
And Joel Turner, he was a skipper, and he's handed over the stick to a younger Aussie, and he's now crewing. And I spoke to those guys, and it's an interesting. I'm like, does he harass you? A lot now that he's an old skipper as a crew, and it's cool to see guys transitioning even in between positions, but also boats. Crews becoming skippers, skippers becoming crews. We've got such a diverse group of sailors here that you could throw them in any boat.
And massive skill set, because it's not easy to change roles. Now, the 2 boats that are leading are really capitalising. Those 2 Danish boats from... there was a bit of line bias, and they took that advantage. So it's Denmark 1 and 2. That's Warra, Lubeck leading with Bull, and Warra and Jensen in second. Burling and Tuke are thirds. Then the USA Snow.
And it looks super close. We've got a close cross here. It looks like Warra and Jensen will put that tack just in ahead of their teammates Lubeck and Hoffman. Look how close it is. Great shot there from the drone. And then you've got Peter Belling and Blair Tuke in third place. And they are screaming into the top mark. And this top mark, it's brought to you by Ford Whip. Go faster on the water. Get out there. Go faster.
And they're certainly going fast. So at Mark 1, it will be the Danish combination of Warra and Jensen. Then Lubeck second, bear away sets, tidy by sail number 9.
I love watching the crews of the 49er and 49er FX. They keep that boat on the dime flat and then manage to sweep up, pick that spinnaker up. They make that manoeuvre look so effortless, but this boat can be a brute.
What's interesting there, look at the wake. Look at the wake line. They come around the first 3 boats. They come round, they sail deep to get their hoist on, so that unloads the rig. And then once they get Jenica set, bow goes up 10 degrees, she's game on. Because if you come round there and go straight on course, you are going to wear it. The wing will go in the water and you'll flip over. Well illustrated there with looking at the wake track lines.
And, if the skipper turns up at just the right time, as the crew, you've just got to pick up the sheet and it feels itself. There's no pulling or tugging or anything. It's just this perfectly timed thing, and we're watching it happen time and time again here.
Well, and at this level, Gold Fleet, you just know people's boat handling is impeccable. Bit of a stack up further back in the track.
These guys are rounding 4 deep. Look at the density back here. And Brazil just sneaking inside. I love that little manoeuvre. Brazil 15, just having that nice little jibe set, saying goodbye to some of that density. They were rounding 4 deep. That is how close this racing is out here today. But it is the 2 Danish teams. They have a nice firm lead and they've continued to sail straight out of that top mark on starboard jibe on the way down here.
Now let's just talk about what you're going to see at the front here. Burling and Toot, on starboard downwind, always soak to leeward. And what they do, they're fast downwind, but they set themselves up so that when the boats ahead of them jibe, they immediately put them in their gas. Time and time again, you see this tactic from the current world champions. They'll come down that top reach, they'll sail deep, and they're fast, setting themselves up for a jibe. Now we're post the jibe, we've caught up to real time.
Textbook.
They're certainly in a position here, the New Zealanders, to take the lead.
Absolutely. It's that applied pressure, and we know that dirty air goes from behind to in front of these guys when they turn to go downwind. So it will be that windward boat, which is New Zealand right now, that's really working on putting a bit of pressure on these 2 Danish teams, and they are doing a great job of it here. And they have some wheels downwind as well, these guys. They're going 15 knots right now, downwind, quick.
Yeah, 15 knots, and they tend to sail at a couple of degrees lower. But we're looking here at the Danish boat. It's
Lubeck, Hoffman and Bull.
As they head down. So we're on the second leg, down to the bottom mark gate.
Good race by USA 31. That's Nevin Snow and Dane Wilson. Those guys have put themselves into 4th place. It's also Austria 6, Bilstein and Husserl. Those guys will be really happy. They're in 2nd place overall, and they've got a keeper under their belt. And also Dylan Fletcher-Scott and Stuart Bithell. Those guys are in 6th currently. Good race by the Phillips boys. Australia 66, they're in 7th. And New Zealand 5, Beck and Gunn. Those guys are in 8th. Good rate. There's a lot of Kiwis up in that top 10 right now.
What's happened in New Zealand with this class is because of Burling and Toot being who they are, it's dragged a whole bunch of interest into the class, and they're out on the water all the time, learning the craft. So New Zealand will be well served when Burling and Toot move on, and I'm sure they will, perhaps even after, if they're selected for Tokyo, and I think they will be. So here's bottom mark jibe by the New Zealanders. The Danes are still in the lead.
Yeah, Lubeck and Hoffman Bull, they've managed to defend against that Kiwi attack. But Warra, Pritch and Jensen, those guys have just let the Kiwis sneak just inside them there. It's going to be a close little mark rounding.
So the bottom mark, that was a set move by Burling and Toot. You see it downwind. The next pinch moment will be the bottom mark, and it's about how you approach the bottom mark and how you execute the manoeuvre.
I was wrong about those results. It's changing all the time. You can see there that the Austrian team, Bildstein and Husel, they've put themselves right into the money there. They are the boat with the red spinnaker just to windward of the two black kites, and it is New Zealand Burling and Tuke with the red spinnaker on the centre of your screen as well. So the pressure's being applied from all sides here. Boats are kind of condensing at the bottom mark. That is a great shot. Now you get a really good perspective of what's going on. It actually looks like Burling and Tuke have had to take a jibe out to clear some air, perhaps, from what's been going on. And Snow, Wilson, Fletcher, Scott and Bithell and Bildstein and Husel applying pressure to that top three.
Yeah, it's a good setup for the bottom mark, and it looks like maybe the two Danish boats will be back in control. It's going to be close at the bottom mark. Good downwind leg by the Dylan Fletcher, Scott and Stuart Bithell.
And Bildstein and Husel, they're going to be taking that right-hand mark looking upwind. They have inserted themselves into second place, which is a really impressive downwind.
And they managed to defend. So Burling and Tuke did not manage the bottom third of the downwind as impressively as you'd have thought. And it was the two Danish teams that are back in first and second. So at Mark 2, you've got Lubeck leading from Bildstein, and then Burling and Warra make up the top four.
Really close racing, and we've seen about a 50-50 split. So you can see the Danish team sailing towards us. The two Danish teams actually have followed each other around that left-hand mark, and it is the Austrians, Bildstein and Husel. They've taken that right-hand gate in the lead, and they're closely followed by Peter Burling and Blair Tuke just in behind them. But interesting to see a split. Right there, and Fletcher Scott has also taken that right-hand mark.
The team that had the blinder with the Austrians on that downwind, they absolutely nailed it.
And to take a lead around a gate as well gives you that clear
the first
air.
mark? I think they might have been fourth.
Yeah, I can probably pull that up.
And they have come from fourth to first on the downwind, I think. We'll just check that. Fifth. They're actually fifth. So our current race leader, Bildstein and Husel, they were fifth at the first mark, first at the bottom mark. That is impressive.
Really impressive. They've got some wheels downwind.
Yeah, and I think when the bit of byplay was going on with Bithell and the New Zealanders and the Danes, it just they could pick their lane, pick their angle, and they took that advantage and said thanks very much.
So these teams are now just checking in with one another. Austria 6. Bildstein and Husel, they've made a tack back into the centre, and also Denmark 9. Those guys are just checking in with one another, whilst Denmark 1, 3, 2 still heading out to the left, and New Zealand 1 still heading out to the right. So a little check-in, some guys sending it, some guys checking in. We've got all the tactics happening out there today.
Well, certainly there's plenty of leverage for the Danish boat on the left-hand side. Lubeck came around the mark and just said, right, we're caught in this zone, we'll just milk it all the way to the corner, and they've jumped back on the animation, I've got to say, into first. But there's nothing in it. There's probably that top 4 or 5 boats, there's 2 or 3 boat lengths in it.
So this second upwind is brought to you by McGlide. Check out McGlide as an alternative to anti-fouling your boat. But I was hoping we could check in with Olivia out there. The wind is building. I want to see how you're going out there, Olivia. What are you seeing? What's happening to the weather? And have you seen any action out there?
Yeah, hey guys, it's consistent wind out here. Obviously the sea breeze was settling in that last NACRA race. For those that were watching, it was a hard right track, but we saw on the first upwind here of the 49er Gold Fleet Racing was a little bit of a left-hand trend, and I think that's just a little bit of settling of the sea breeze as it came in. It was a big push. We had about 13, even 14 knots in the gusts out here. A little bit of chop building, but it is still quite flat. It's settled now to anywhere between 10 and 12 knots. So you're seeing consistent stretching sailing from all these 49er sailors that are just happy to be out here. I think it was a little bit daunting getting out here and probably sitting and waiting for maybe an hour and a bit whilst the NACRAs were postponed and then into a race. But you can see that they're all just trying to gain a little bit of an advantage. Obviously, lead's changing and it's all happening out here.
Thanks for that update, Olivia. A bit of a move here happening in the scoreboard is that Denmark 9, Warro Pritch Jensen, those guys have fallen a little bit down the leader track, and I don't think it's of anything other than them doing a few more tacks up the middle than some of the other guys that have been legging it out a little bit further on the edges of the course. So they've, as it stands, I know we don't know until they get up to the top mark, but it looks like they've dropped down to about 10th or 9th there.
Let me just jump in there, sorry. We just see a weed clear there by Bithell. So as they came across, you saw the helmsman go back to the rudder. And, of course, if there's any seaweed or fouling on the rudder, it really affects the performance. So there's a cross coming up there between New Zealand and GBR. So that'll be Burling and Fletcher Scott. And they're on the animation, they're fighting it out for the lead. It's the New Zealanders just in the lead. Going into this, Bilstein and Burling were locked together, although the countback it gave it to Burling. They are the current regatta leaders. That's Austria and New Zealand.
Yeah, and they're having a nice little battle out there at the moment, you know, with the GBR number 3, Fletcher Scott and Bithell. They're all like right up there in that top 3 having a fight out. A bit different to the NACRA racing that we saw, was super mixed up.
This comes down to the subtleties of you know, accuracy of tactics, obviously, and boat speed. I think the speed is very even, but it comes down to, you know, pick your moment. And pick your moment, you can't take every moment. And right now, that top group, I think top 5, are all in with a shout. And I see the Phillips brothers up there in 5th. That's really good result. They're good sailors, those guys. They were impressive in Auckland.
They insisted to me that they don't love the heavy air, that they'll take any conditions, but I've always thought of those two boys as excellent heavy air sailors, and it's good to see the brothers sailing together. They're so calm, they're such gentlemen, they're so lovely, and it's so good to see them right up there and mixing it there. I think the biggest movers on this upwind, I think they rounded in about 8th position, and they're now, you know, jumping between 4th and 5th. And it's been a tough upwind for the Danish teams. You know, they're now down to 5th and 6th, and they were the top 2 boats around that top mark. So I wonder with Lubeck, Hoffman and Bull, and also Warro Pritch and Jensen, if those guys have had a bit of weed or a little bit of a trouble. But I did see a few of those teams doing a few more manoeuvres up the middle, probably not quite decided on which side to hit.
Burling and Tuke in the lead. The other thing, looking at the current world champions, Burling's tall.
Yes.
And he weighs around 80 kilos. Blair Tuke's a little bit shorter, a little bit lighter, so their crew weight is in that 145 kilograms. But with Burling being a little bit bigger, you notice, and it's a real feature of their sailing, they sail a little bit stern down. And especially on the downwinds, when they get a gust, the boat goes back to level. So their starting point often is, and it's probably only a degree or 2, is stern down. But for me, it's quite noticeable. It's a different look, and they really capitalise on that.
And for all those young aspiring sailors, you know, tuning in, just watching how steady they keep their rig going through the water, and no gust, no wave, nothing will tip that boat. It is just smooth sailing.
The other thing to look at with the Kiwi setup, see the tack height on the jib? So they're flying their jib tack a little bit high, so they're sailing with a flatter setup. They're in that pointing mode. I don't think anyone is more tuned in to setting up a 40-nighter than these two.
Yeah, they've been around for, you know, this will be their 3rd, at least, campaign in this class, if not 3rd and a half.
Yeah.
You know, they've been in there for quite a long time and had quite a strong training crew going into London 2012, where they won the silver medal, and they were obviously training with Nathan Outteridge and Ian Jensen, and those two worked so closely together, maybe too closely for Outteridge and Jensen, who had to defend, you know, the Olympic title against them in the Rio Olympics, where Burling and Tuke stood up and took that gold medal.
But you might as well go and play with the best.
Yeah.
You know, if you're going to be good at this game, just go out and get against the best in the world and try and figure out what they do. But I think the differences are very, very subtle. They're all fast, this fleet, but the current world champions, really, their refinement of the craft is sets them apart.
They are all setting up a little bit to the left hand of this top mark, so they will have to do another little dig across on port tack. But they're all having a bit of a go, a little bit of a step up to this side. So it shows me that there might be a little bit at play that we could see for this downwind, a bit of bias to that left-hand side.
So we're on the third leg. This is mark number 3. They go around the mark, bear away set straight down towards the finish. Be a fascinating race, and right now it's Burley and Took from Fletcher Scott and Stuart Bithell. We go back to the New Zealanders. They pride themselves, this could be the commentator's curse, pride themselves on crew work. I know Blair does, and we'll just see how they handle this top mark. They come through.
The Phillips brothers have worked their way up into 4th place now as well, so they're having a really nice upwind. Textbook.
Wow, your crew work's impressive. And that's a big lead. They've smashed it on that upwind.
Really stretched out a little bit.
So second, it'll be Dylan Fletcher Scott and Stuart Bithell. Of course, they're already selected for Tokyo Olympics. So strong upwind performance by them. Then we've got this congestion
tight
at the top mark. Cut 2 Danes and an Austrian.
Great comeback from Warro Pretsch Jensen, Denmark 9, to work their way back into that. And it is Austria, number 6, Bildstein and Husel rounding in 5th. And it will be USA, Nevin Snow and Dane Wilson getting around in good shape as well. The Phillips brothers snuck around in there as well, so they're in 4th place. You can see them just a ladder rung to leeward there. You can see these guys sending it. They're all picking their angles, and it is, as you said, that drag race. You're trying to edge a little bit lower than your counterparts to set yourself up for that next jibe. But it's a real juggle, you want to keep your bow forward and your speed up. Look at that. There's like 5 boats deep going down there, all kind of bow for bow. You can really see the drag race that's going on here. And, it's a real juggle between the skipper and their helming and the crew and getting that kite right in that one position, because they are locked and loaded. They're in that back foot strap, shoulders back. It's just the trim and the helming that's the real magic here.
Well, the first 2 have stepped out, but it's all on for really third through to 6th?
Yeah.
Anything could happen. So the second place boat now has jibed. That's Dylan Fletcher Scott, Stuart Bithell jibed away. The red spinnaker in the distance is the race leader, Burlington Took. We're fascinated to see how it plays out between Bildstein and Hustle and Warra and Jensen. There's plenty to be had here for that 3rd position.
Very close. And Denmark, applying a pressure just from above, trying to edge a little bit further forward. But once that jibe gets away, they've only got until that jibe point to apply that pressure before they've got to start all over again on that new jibe. It'll be interesting to see when these New Zealand 1, Burling and Tuke, when they put their jibe in. There it is, because I think that they're gone all the way to that ley line now. Keep it as simple as possible. They'll be really close to being in on that finish line now.
Yeah, I'm sure that's close to ley line from the end. They had enough buffer over the second place to really just do one jibe and in, if that's what they've elected to do. This was what I was talking about here with Burling being quite big. The boat always sits on, especially on the downwind leg, slightly stern down. You've sailed these things, you know a lot more about it than I do, but I noticed when I've seen them out training, they really concentrating on compressing the back of the boat. And if they get any sort of gust, the thing just goes back to level, and it's a small gain.
Well, we know more about it in the FX as well. We're sailing the same hull. The FX is the same hull as the 49er, but you've got a smaller rig and sail section. And often with the girls, we're a little bit lighter. We want another foot of boat out the back so we can get that nose up. So you know how you feel just a little bit more secure when you can really throw your shoulders back and keep the bow out. Not so much in this flat water. This is Champagne 49 49er conditions, flat water and a bit of wind. It doesn't get better than this. But as soon as you see a little bit of chop or swell, these boats can be a death trap, a good old cartwheel. Once you stick that spinnaker pole into a wave, there's nowhere else to go but the boat going over the back of you. And it's a nice little safety combination, having the skipper a little bit bigger than the crew.
So heading down towards the finish, Burley and Turk, they were a little conservative, probably started about third off the line. Quite strong on the first downwind, although towards the bottom mark they got rolled, but the second upwind they just smashed it. And you don't need to give this combination too many chances, and they'll make the fleet pay.
Yeah, it was just a little bit effortless, wasn't it? We saw the two Danish teams have a little bit of difficulty.
I wonder if there's a wee bit going on behind them with the Danes are probably still an Olympic selection as they come down towards the finish, but yeah.
Congratulations, boys. That is a pretty flawless little race there. Conservative, not dialing up the risk too much. I love that, just one jibing into that finish line. Nice and easy. And it does look like Austria, number 6, have worked their way into a good position to be into second place. But the New Zealanders, they had a pretty strong lead. There's a bit of gap now between them and second place, but they should be coming onto the screen.
They've really smashed it. The other team that are fast on the downwind is currently in second in this race, and I think second overall. It's Benjamin Bilstein and David Hussell. They seem to make their move on the downwind, so that's something to watch out for in terms of the patterning. So the Austrians have good downwind speed as they come round. They came from 5th to 1st on the first downwind, and I think they've come from not from 5th but maybe 4th through to 2nd.
A great race.
As they go over, that's a very tidy race by the Austrian combination. Then it is the Brits of Dylan Fletcher-Scott and Stuart Bithell.
And while we have a moment before these next boats come in, the difference between the Austrians and the New Zealanders going into the day was nothing. They're equal. And, there's just that 1 point in it now, but the pressure is on for the Austrians to stand up to that pressure of the result, and posting a second is standing up to that pressure. This is Australia 66, the Phillips brothers, Sam and Will. Congratulations to those guys. They will be very pleased with that 4th place. And it will be Denmark 9, Warre Pretsch Jensen in 5th place. Oh, and then the other Danish team, close but just not quite close enough, Lubeck, Hoffman, Bull. Those guys will be in 6th place. Germany 59, Schmidt and Boehm. And it will be the young Aussie team, Australia 40, Needham and Turner, in a very close finish here. We'll have to see how it comes. They've got their nose ahead right now, but it's really close between them and the Germans. But I think they've just put it away. That will be Nevin Snow and Dane Wilson, I believe. That American team crossing, and also we've got Hale and Plossel probably in 10th there. They will drop that result. And the Swiss team, Schneitner and Kujin, those guys are in 11th. And it will be Beck and Gunn now with that blue spinnaker coming in to the finish there. It is close. Like, look at the fight out here. These guys are really fighting for these final positions, trying to make something a bit of a keeper.
Boats file through now. Certainly the lead group managed to jump away, but it's so hard if you're back in the pack. By then there's very close finish there.
Oh,
as they
2
come
Americans
through,
too, and another. It's a really tight finish.
Roaring in there. Wow, they're coming in from I think that's Fantella just coming through from Croatia.
Wow. That was quite a quick finish. We'll have to get the results up eventually to see how that all finished up. But we will just quickly mention our Australian bushfire appeal. We've got a fundraiser going on, and your chance to win some fantastic 49er and NACRA and FX prizes. So you can donate at 49er.org/donate to check out what we've got available and also donate to what is a fantastic cause.